Hi there, Wellness Challenge participants. We are so happy to have you on board for our 2025 Wellness Challenges. We really look forward to supporting you and achieving your goals in 2025 and beyond. My name is Emily Perryman. I'm a registered dietitian and the founder of Nature's Wellness Path, a nutrition counseling practice geared toward guiding individuals on their wellness journeys. I'm so excited today to talk to you about a very important topic, so let's dive in. And I'm here with the Urban Life Center, Urban Life Academy. So, setting yourself up for success with the right mindset and life enhancing habits. So, what we will cover today, the principles of cultivating the right mindset, about habits and their importance, habit loops, models for habit formation, and the power of small changes, support, and tracking progress. So we know that your health is not an accident. Rather, it is a compilation of your thoughts and actions. Your mind is your greatest tool or your greatest enemy. The choice is yours. So that's really what we want to discuss today, how we can make our mind be our friend instead of our enemy. So, principle number one for cultivating the right mindset, remember your why for starting a wellness challenge or setting any goal. They say when you know your why, you can endure any how. And a few questions that you could ask yourself regarding your goal: what would happen if I did nothing different? Am I okay with that? And am I willing to put time and attention into this? So, just keeping those in mind when you are embarking on a new goal or starting a wellness challenge. So, we want to focus on progress versus perfection. We want to really celebrate even the smallest successes, as this will help us build momentum and keep our spirits up even when there are some challenges. And remember that the fast fix mentality doesn't work. Instead, we want to take gradual, intentional steps in the direction of our goals. We also want to set realistic expectations and establish SMART goals that build on each other. SMART standing for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. Research has shown that when we're able to set these types of goals, we're a lot more successful in achieving them. We want to practice self compassion along the journey. We want to be kind to ourselves when there is a slip up or a setback because it's bound to happen. We're human. Things come up. We might not always be able to follow through, but we can speak to ourselves kindly and get right back on track. And going along with that is engaging in positive thinking and visualization. Studies have shown that visualizing and imagining your goals can make you twice as confident in achieving them. And that really makes a big difference. So, something that could be helpful, as you can see in this image, is before you start really visualizing the new you, whether it's your goal is to run a 5K in 3 months or run a marathon within the next year and a half, something like that. What you want to see is yourself getting up, getting your running shoes on, getting your running gear on, having your water before you set out for a run, and putting those miles in and celebrating it. So, really visualizing your new self as this person who is active, is accomplishing their goals in small steps to reach your overall goal of that 5K or marathon, for example. And then practicing positive self talk, we really want to focus on encouraging and supportive language and really reminding yourself why you're making the changes and the benefits you will experience instead of focusing on things that are so hard and, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. Really reminding yourself why you're doing it and the benefits that you'll experience, what you will gain from the experience. And then definitely surrounding yourself with a supportive community like the one at Urban Life Center. If you have friends or family that are looking to also achieve health related goals or any type of goal, that way you just feel like you have that support and it is super helpful. One study found that you have a 65% chance of achieving a goal even if you just tell someone else that you're committed to doing it. And what's even more cool is that your success jumps to 95% if you have specific check-ins with a buddy. You have more of that accountability that's very direct. So just keeping that in mind as you move forward. And then being flexible, understand that your needs may change, or the steps that you're taking to reach your goal aren't quite what's bringing you closer to them. It might actually be something you need to tweak. I talked about in one of the short videos about the experience of creating habits in taking steps towards your goal as being something that requires some trial and error. Much like a recipe, we need to tweak things as we go to make sure we're on the right path to achieving our goals. We want to practice gratitude, focus on being grateful for what we're gaining versus focusing what we're giving up. And one example would be my energy and sleep are improving, or they're going to improve, and my joint pain is lessening, or it's going to lessen, versus focus on I can no longer binge watch my favorite shows after dinner until all hours of the evening. And instead of focusing on, oh my goodness, going to the grocery store is such a task. It's, oh, I get to see it as an opportunity to buy some healthy items. So just keeping that mindset present. And then we do want to make sure we're prioritizing rest so you can feel recharged. Restful sleep contributes to overall mental resilience, and it equips you to better handle the ups and downs that we're bound to experience on any wellness journey. So, mental resilience is key in adapting to changes, overcoming obstacles, and persisting in the face of challenges. So, really, anytime that we are embarking on a wellness journey or setting and trying to achieve a goal, we really want to make sure we're getting enough restful sleep and just time to recharge in general. So let's move on to habits. We're going to talk about harnessing the power of life enhancing habits to help you achieve your goals. So, first of all, what are habits? Habits are automatic behaviors that your brain has carefully stored to save energy. They operate in the background, freeing up mental bandwidth for more complex decisions. Imagine if we had to think about every single thing we do each day. That would be very mentally draining. So, these habits are these automatic behaviors that help us save that decision making and that energy. So, two main types of habits that I'll call: one is life enhancing, habits that enrich your life and bring you closer to your goals. Examples would include exercising daily, drinking adequate water, setting aside time to connect with loved ones. Life draining habits would be habits that hold you back from achieving your goals, such as late night snacking or endless scrolling. So it is important to note that habits are more than just behaviors. They are reflections of who you are and what you value. So, for example, every time you complete a habit, you reinforce an identity. So, if you're someone who exercises regularly, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who prioritizes your health. If you tend to procrastinate often, you are unintentionally reinforcing I struggle with focus or getting things done. The beauty of habits, though, is that they are not set in stone. They are patterns that can be reshaped with effort and intention. So that's really helpful to keep in mind. And habits are not random, rather they follow a predictable pattern that's called the habit loop. And this is a four-part framework where we have the cue, the craving, the routine, and the reward. So just to go into this a little more detail, the cue triggers the behavior, the brain that initiates a behavior. The craving is the motivational force behind every habit. The response is the actual habit, which can take the form of a thought or an action. And then the reward, the end goal of every habit, really what's driving us to do the habit is that reward. It gives us a hit of dopamine, which feels good and makes us want to continue to do the habit over and over, whether it's life enhancing or life draining. So, cue. Cue can take many forms. There's two main categories. One would be external. So these are environmental triggers like the smell of coffee brewing, the buzz of a notification on your phone, or even a specific time of day. And then there's internal cues. They arrive from within and they're often tied to emotions or physical states. Like when we're feeling stressed, this might cue us to reach for a snack, or if we're feeling bored, we might want to open up a social media app and start scrolling. Cues are powerful because they act as prompts, directing you to the next step in the habit loop, which is that craving. And the craving is part of that motivation behind the behavior. So, when we move on to routine and reward, routine is the behavior or action that you perform once the cue and craving are recognized. Reward is really the why behind the habit, the payoff, and the reason your brain wants to repeat this behavior. And rewards end up being what make habits stick. So over time, the brain starts associating the cue directly with the reward, and this tends to make the habit automatic. So if we take drinking coffee as an example, you can see here the cue, the smell of coffee brewing in the morning, the craving, desire to drink the coffee, to feel the warmth, and to enjoy the flavors. Routine, you pour a cup and take a sip. Reward, the warmth, flavor, and caffeine boost makes you feel awake and content. So in the future, you would probably want to repeat this habit because of the strong reward that is present. So, in terms of habits, there is a science to it in terms of repetition. Every time the habit loop is completed, those four steps, it reinforces the neural pathways in your brain. So, think of it much like carving a trail through the woods. The more often we're walking that trail, the more worn it becomes. So, very similar. The reason why habits are so difficult to break is the loop becomes deeply ingrained and your brain defaults to this path of least resistance. It's not necessarily a bad thing, though. Keep that in mind. It is actually an opportunity. So, by understanding that habit loop, those four steps, you can begin to rewire your brain, replacing those old trails or old habits with new, intentional, hopefully life enhancing ones. So, by breaking habits into those components, the cue, craving, routine, and reward, we gain the power to analyze, understand, and then modify them, which is what we're really looking to do when we're achieving our wellness goals. A lot of times we need to rework our habits in order to help us reach those goals. So, the habit loop is your blueprint for transformation, whether you want to build a positive new behavior, one of those life enhancing habits, or dismantle an old unhelpful one. So it's really useful in either regard. So, why habits matter for our well being? So, lasting health is not built in grand gestures. A lot of times we think by going to a wellness spa or um, doing a juice cleanse for 2 weeks, but rather those can be helpful. But what's most helpful is these small, consistent actions that you take daily. And those habits are actually the foundation of your well being. So, every glass of water you drink, every step you take, and every hour of sleep you prioritize is a vote for the person you want to become. You're voting for your well being to help you achieve your wellness goals. So, habits have a big impact on our health in many different areas. So, physical health, mental well being, and emotional balance. So, habits are more than just about your health, though. They are about living a life aligned with your values and aspirations. Sometimes this helps people to think of that as well. So, when your daily actions reflect who you want to be, you create a harmony between your intentions and your reality, which often leads to fulfillment and meaning, which is really important. So I like this quote by James Clear. He's the author of the New York Times bestselling book Atomic Habits, which you may have read. I am still getting through it, but it's a great book. The process of building habits is actually the process of becoming yourself. So keep that in mind. So, just a few common questions that you might be thinking or might have thought in the past regarding habits. So, why do some habits stick while others don't? So, habits tied to strong rewards are more likely to stick. So, when a behavior feels good, it gets locked into the brain's reward system, making it easier and easier to continue with. Why are bad habits so hard to break? This is because the brain does not distinguish between so called good and so called bad habits. It only cares about efficiency and reward. So once a habit is established, it is hardwired, and undoing it requires conscious effort to override the automatic loop. And then how can we build better habits? We can leverage the brain's natural tendencies. So what we can do is we can pair a desired behavior with an existing habit to create a new habit. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it was something I alluded to in one of the short videos, that habit stacking. So we'll go into that shortly. Sorry, it's being slow. Okay. So let's explore the two key models that illuminate how change happens and how you can make it happen in your life. So, number one is the simplicity principle. So, for example, if you are trying to drink more water throughout the day, you want to make this as easy as possible, as simple as possible. If the water bottle is tucked away and your kitchen is far from where you're working or where you're setting yourself up for the day, how likely are you to stick with the habit? Probably not very. However, if you place a filled, maybe if you prefer cold water, a cold water bottle on your desk, you have a visual cue, it's much closer, it's much more simple to begin to take more sips throughout the day. So just keeping that idea of keeping it as simple and as easy as possible. So habits thrive again when they're easy to perform. The less friction between you and the desired behavior, the more likely you are to do it. We really want these habits to feel effortless. Repetition will become more natural, and then consistency becomes a given. So it's this nice domino effect. The key is to remove as many barriers as possible between you and the habit you're trying to cultivate. So, for example, if you're trying to get into the habit of working out every morning, what you could do is lay out your workout clothes the night before so you're ready to go in the morning. All you have to do is put them on and go do your exercise routine. Nutrition wise, pre chopping vegetables and keeping them in containers that are visible to make healthy eating convenient. Mindfulness, if we're placing a journal or our meditation cushion in a spot where we frequently visit, that way we're able to see it. And that could be a cue to remind ourselves to pause and reflect, or to sit down and do that guided meditation practice. So just keeping those in mind of how we can really simplify our habits to make them more doable. And then we have BJ Fogg's model for habits. He has a great book called Tiny Habits and a free 5-day program as well, which is really great. It's found on his website. But he talks about how behaviors happen when three things come together. So, MAP: motivation, ability, and prompt. So, motivation is your desire to perform the behavior, and it can stem from a variety of sources. So, just keeping that in mind. One example would be you are motivated to exercise because you want to feel more energetic or you want to reduce stress. So, when motivation is high, it's easier to do hard things. Once it drops, we usually will only do easy things. So, this goes back to that simplicity principle. So, therefore, we want to make the desired behavior as easy as possible to implement. Ability refers to how easy it is for you to perform the desired behavior. Even if motivation is high, a behavior will not happen if it feels too hard. So, for example, a 5-minute walk around your neighborhood is far more achievable than a 5-minute mile run if you are just starting an exercise habit. So, again, keeping it very simple to begin with and then building from there. It is also helpful to understand what makes a behavior hard to do. So you can ask yourself this question: what is making this behavior hard to do? That can just be a good reflection point. 5 factors to consider in your ability to do a behavior. Do you have the time to do the behavior? Do you have enough money? Are you physically capable? Does the behavior require a lot of mental energy? Does the behavior fit into your current routine, or does it require you to make adjustments? So, just keeping these factors in mind when you're asking yourself what's making a behavior hard to do, you can get even more specific in helping you see what is making it harder. So, prompt is the last factor, and this is the trigger that initiates the behavior. Without a prompt, even the most motivated and capable individual will not act. So, for example, a prompt could be setting an alarm to remind yourself to take a break and stretch every hour. So, this is a template that BJ Fogg talks about in his Tiny Habits book, and this relates to the concept of using habit stacking. So, using a habit that you're currently doing on a regular basis, whether it's feeding your dog, drinking your coffee, making your breakfast, brushing your teeth, and then stacking a new habit that you're trying to cultivate on top of that, and then celebrating. So it sounds like this. After I blank, this is your current routine. I will blank. This is the new habit that you're trying to cultivate. Then I celebrate. And the celebration is something you do to create a positive feeling inside yourself. It could be a smile, it could be a way to go, it could be a high five to yourself. Whatever it is that gives that positive feeling inside is going to help reinforce that behavior, and your brain's going to be more likely to repeat it. So keep in mind this: A, anchor moment; B, for tiny behavior; and then C, for celebration. So when the elements of the motivation, action, God, ability, and prompt align, motivation is high, so that's our M. The behavior feels easy, that's ability, and then the prompt, a clear prompt, is present. So for example, we want to drink 72 ounces of water per day is our goal for water intake. Motivation, you want to feel hydrated and reduce fatigue. You notice when you drink more, you feel better. Ability, you have placed a water bottle within arm's reach. You've made it the behavior feel easier. And then prompt is you set a timer on your phone reminding yourself to take a few sips every so often, whether it's every hour, every half hour. So that's how this model would work. And how we can design habits for lasting success. So we want to lower the barrier. So again, keeping in mind that simplicity principle, how can I make this habit easier? Breaking it into smaller steps, removing unnecessary effort, or adjusting your environment to support the behavior. And then harnessing that motivation, ability, and prompt principle, evaluate where your current habits fall short. Is the behavior too difficult? Is motivation lacking? Or are you forgetting to act because there is no clear reminder or prompt? And then adjust accordingly to make the habit feel more natural. So, one thing that is extremely important in habit formation is the idea of mindfulness. So, habits thrive on autopilot. A lot of the behaviors that we do daily occur without conscious thought, and they're driven by those triggers and then reinforced by those rewards. So, this is both a strength and a weakness, but because these habits thrive on autopilot, it allows for efficiency, but it also means that unwanted habits can persist unchecked unless we're kind of tuning in and reflecting on them, which is what mindfulness helps us to do. So, mindfulness invites you to pause, notice, and make an intentional choice versus reacting impulsively. It increases self awareness, helps you to stay present during those moments of choice, and helps you gain ability to observe your habits so you can reshape them if needed. So, just keeping those practices of mindfulness in mind, whether it's deep breathing, meditation, yoga, where you're really in the present moment, a walk in nature, where you're able to bring your mind back to the present moment. So, a few things to create a life enhancing habit. First law, cue, you want to make it obvious. Second law, that craving, we want to make it attractive. Third law, response, make it easy. Fourth law, regarding the reward, make it satisfying. Conversely, to break a life draining habit, we want to make it the cue, make it invisible. Craving, make it unattractive. Response, make it difficult. Reward, make it unsatisfying, something you wouldn't want to do again and again. So, power of small changes. When we want to change, it's tempting to think real big, overhauling your diet, hitting the gym every day for 2 hours, or committing to a dramatic lifestyle shift. However, although this does have their place, these ambitious goals, research has actually shown that small incremental changes are far more sustainable and effective in the long term. The reason for this is that small changes require less effort and feel manageable, making them easier to stick to over time. Each small success builds momentum, creating a sense of progress that motivates you to keep going. And small habits build on each other, they compound. Drinking one glass of water daily might not seem like a big deal or having that it would have a big impact, but over weeks and months, it can transform your hydration habits. So, for example, instead of thinking of committing to a 60-minute workout immediately, start with 5 minutes of stretching or a short walk, something that feels a lot more doable if you're just starting to engage in getting into a regular fitness routine. So I thought this chart could be helpful, and BJ Fogg talks about the starter step and scaling back more in his book, Tiny Habits. But for example, if your goal was to drink more water, even just taking that starter steps or making it very tiny of putting your water bottle in your purse. So you're really applying that simplicity principle and you're making it a lot easier to do. So you're going to that ability out of the motivation ability and prompt. Scaling back would just be instead of drinking a habit of drinking 2 bottles a day, you're starting out with just drinking a sip of water. And you can see some other examples here. So, a study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology revealed that on average it takes 66 days to form a habit. So, this does vary pretty widely. So, why this matters is if we are just waiting those 66 days to create a habit, we want to do these small ones that are really going to solidify in just a few weeks. So, for example, simple habits like drinking a glass of water every morning, those might that might become a habit more quickly than the 66 days. That's the average. But however, a more complex habit like establishing a consistent exercise routine or adopting a new way of eating could take months. So knowing that a habit takes time also helps you to set realistic expectations and knowing that change is a process. So you want to embrace the journey and give yourself grace along the way. Remember, practicing that self kindness, that self compassion, and that positive self talk is really helpful. So it's we really want to focus on designing your environment to help you achieve your goals. Your surroundings play a massive role in shaping your health. James Clear puts it, environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. So we want to make good habits convenient. So if you want to eat healthier, we want to place fruits and veggies in plain sight. And we want to keep junk food out of reach or out of the house altogether if it is an option, and therefore we want to make bad habits inconvenient. Therefore, if you want to reduce screen time, keep your phone in another room during meals or before bedtime instead of having it right in your pocket or somewhere where it'd be easier to grab. We want to design spaces for intentionality, create dedicated zones for specific activities. For example, use your desk only for work, not for leisure or snacking. Something practical that you could think of doing to help you design your environment if you're struggling in that area, which is very common, is to complete an audit of your environment. Ask yourself, does my space support the habit I want to build? If not, what small changes can I make? And then accountability and support really matter. We're social creatures and our behaviors are often influenced by the people around us. So we can leverage this social dynamic to significantly enhance our ability to stick with the habit. So research has shown that sharing your goals with an accountability partner, as I mentioned earlier, really increases your likelihood of success. Social support creates a sense of responsibility, making you much less likely to abandon your efforts when you've committed to it with even just one person. And then they've shown that group settings, such as workout classes or book clubs, add an element of camaraderie, sorry, that boosts motivation. So keeping that in mind. Practical application. So finding a partner that you could share your habit goals with, whether it's a friend, family member, coach who can, you can do check-ins regularly. You can join a community, engage with groups that share your interests, whether it's a fitness class, an online forum, or a local meetup, and then celebrate together. So keeping that importance of celebrating in mind. Tool for sustainable habits, something that we really want to try to do to measure our progress over time is to track our habits using a habit tracker. And the reason for this is that when it comes to building a habit, feedback is often delayed. We might be running for several weeks or even months, but not really noticing a huge difference in our body, or meditating daily, but still feeling super stressed at work or home or both. So, knowing that habits take time to show their benefits is something helpful to keep in mind. And in the meantime, until we have that feeling of the benefit, it's helpful to see something that's helping us see if we're on the right path. So it is also helpful to remember that habit formation is a marathon, not a sprint, but you will have some feedback from using a habit tracker, and I'll go into some forms that are available. So, what is a habit tracker? It's just a simple way to measure whether you did a habit. Types of trackers, there's the most basic would just be checking it off or Xing it off on your calendar, indicating that you've completed the habit. There are some free and paid templates available online, as I showed in one of the short videos, that can be used to track your habits. And then there are some habit tracking apps, including some free options like OnRise, and then some apps that have some free features for a certain number of habits, like Habit Now and Way of Life. So you can kind of explore what might be best for you, but they have been shown to be helpful in kind of cultivating those sustainable habits to make them long term. So no matter what design you choose for a habit tracker, the purpose is that it provides immediate evidence that you completed your habit, and it's a signal that you're making progress. It can also serve as a powerful tool because it can create a visual cue to remind you to do the habit. It's motivating to see the progress you're making, and it also feels satisfying to record your success in that moment. So, in summary, I know we covered a lot. We want to set small and smart goals, and we want to start small, tiny. Focus on consistency over perfection. Use habit stacking to seamlessly incorporate new habits into your daily life. Celebrate even what seems like the smallest wins. Track your progress using a habit tracker and create a cohesive system where you're combining mindfulness, a strong support system, environmental cues, and intentional adjustments for long lasting habit formation. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Take care. Bye bye.